This is lesson 12 on practicing Wesleyan holiness spiritual formation. And we're going to continue our conversation about fasting in this lesson and just look at some more of the biblical principles concerning fasting that will help us as we choose to progress and learn about this spiritual discipline of fasting. Most of this information can be found in Fasting for Spiritual Breakthrough by Elmer Towns. There are some additional fasts included in this, and they can all be found in the Bible. The first thing to think about is that God really is the one who chooses what type of fast that we do. Isaiah 58, 6 through 8 says, "Is not this the kind of fasting I have chosen? To loose the chains of injustice, to untie the cords of the yoke, to set the oppressed free, and to break every yoke? Is it not to share your food with the hungry, and to provide the poor wandering with shelter? When you see the naked, to clothe them, and not to turn away from your own flesh and blood? Then your light will break forth like the dawn, and your healing will quickly appear. Then your righteousness will go before you, and the glory of the Lord will be your rear guard." God was tired of his people of Israel having fast and celebrations and no change of action, no change of behavior. To fast and to really spiritually do what God wants us to do, he must lead. It must be his choosing. And then it must be a fast that leads to true change in our behavior. It can't be just some out there spiritual activity that we have this encounter with God. It has to then come back and change who we are as people and how we act and our lives in general. And so that's what's God's desire, and that's what's his heart. So as we look at some different examples of spiritual types of fast, biblical types of fast, overall they have to be led and chosen by God, and they need to lead to some type of change, some type of action that is good for people and good for the kingdom. The first type of fast is a disciples fast. We see in Hebrews 12 that there's this inset sin, a carnal nature within us, and part of fasting is helping us to overcome that. The disciples fast is about freedom from addiction, freedom from those sins that bind our lives and torment our existence. And so that's the core of Elmer Towns' book, is this whole concept of being free from addiction and being free from this enslaving sin of our lives. Moses fasted in Deuteronomy 9, and he fasted in preparation to receive the Ten Commandments. So fasting can be in preparation to receive revelation from God. As ministers, as pastors, leaders who need to get up and have sometimes a fresh revelation from God, this can be essential. If you get in those dry times where you're just not hearing from God, maybe it's time to fast to receive new revelation from him. Samuel fast is that fasting for revival and for God to bring his people to a place of wholehearted service and wholehearted involvement in the harvest of souls for the kingdom. 2 Chronicles 7 and 1 Samuel 7 give some references there to a Samuel fast. An Elijah fast. 1 Kings 19 talks about Elijah's great victory in Mount Carmel, and then after that his dive towards fear and depression. And so it's a fast to overcome the negative emotions and negative habits in our lives. With that same story comes the widow's fast, that fasting to provide for the needy. The widow gave up and God gave up for herself, and God provided for her and for others because of her willingness to give up for herself. David's fast, 2 Samuel 12, talks about David praying for his son and praying that the consequences of sin might be overcome. Don't always talk about this much as a fasting example because David did not get the answer that he was looking for. That's a great reminder of fasting, is that again, it can't be something that you do and expect God to answer the way you want him to answer. But we still need to fast for healing. We still need to fast that we would not have to face all the consequences of our sin. Daniel fast, we've talked about fasting for blessing and overcoming the world's corruption in our lives. An Esther fast, Esther was fasting for protection from the evil one. Yet herself and her nation were at the brink of destruction, and she fasted and prayed that she would have an audience with the king and rescue her people. John the Baptist fasted for influential testimony. Think of Luke 1:15. Think of how we do community events, or we want something that goes out in the community, and this is a great opportunity to fast and pray that God would allow our testimony to be influential in people's lives. Jesus himself fasted. We'll read that account in Matthew 4. And this is fasting, prepare for ministry, fasting to set out on a journey of your life and plan, maybe fasting for your life plan for your coming years of ministry. Paul fasted for decision making, Acts 9. And sometimes we come to those crossroads. We need to make a decision about what to do in our lives, and we can fast for those. The Antioch church fasted, Acts 13:1-3. They prayed and fasted and called out Paul and Barnabas and sent them out as missionaries. We need to fast and pray that God would call people to ministry and then send them out to our world. These are just some different examples from the Bible about types of fast, reasons for fasting, and these are great starting points for us as we plan out. So as you think about your homework for fasting, is to plan a fast. What type of fast? How long? Again, it's got to be God's choosing. It can't really be totally a class assignment. It needs to be God's choosing. And then choose one of these models. What do you need in your life right now? What do you need in your journey right now? What do you need to spend in that day, 2 days, 3 days, how many ever days you choose to fast and to pray? What's the focus going to be? And so your homework is to schedule a fast and to complete a fast, and determine what type of fast it will be and for what purpose, and then watch God work in your life and in your journey.